everybody, and welcome back to the WTF1 Podcast. Yes, that was some serious hype, because we're not just in car launch season anymore. We've actually got some F1 news about the 2022 kind of schedule, I suppose, and talking about the F1 sprint. Now, this is something that has very much divided fans worldwide, or at least that's the impression you get from Twitter. And we have some news about it, so we will be diving into that. But firstly, of course, Tom Bellingham, the WTF1 founder and lead rock guitarist, as we can see in the background.
Hello.
I'm still waiting for that to get plugged in and you properly riff a tune. That's what it's called, isn't it? When you riff. Anyway, good. And Katie, the WTF1 author. There's nothing really to go on in your backdrop that I haven't already. Nice clock. Is that telling the time? Can't really see the hands.
And neither will the video.
Funny story. My clock in the kitchen, I still haven't changed from, because I'm like, it will go back eventually.
Oh, wow. It literally changes like next week or something. So
is it? Oh, perfect. There you go then.
I think it's quite soon.
I've literally just left it and I've been like, oh, it's an hour less than that. Hour more. Anyway, cool. Let's go back to Formula One, shall we? But first, let's talk about Team WTF1. We are actually going to be releasing our race podcast early for Team WTF1 this year, as we're doing it live, just like we did. I say actually that we haven't done this. We did this last year, but we do it live. Essentially, we do every single race podcast live for our Team WTF1 members. You also get a merchandise discount. I'm doing a gaming thing as well, which is very exciting. I've just finished the plans for it, where it's going to be like a big old lobby on F1 2021, where you'll be able to win some amazing prizes. And it's going to be live streamed on WTF1 channel as well. And it'll be like a monthly thing. That's basically the plan. It may change, but that's the plan. You also get access to our Discord server, the WTF1 Clubhouse event at Silverstone, where you can come camp with us and have a great weekend and lots more. So
Party with the author.
Party with the author. That's literally what that's what people did. Although I'm not sure about this year, actually, Katie. Will you have your own VIP area? Probably.
Yeah, I'll be on a throne in the corner.
Perfect.
£5 autograph.
Yeah. There you go. Little photo booth as well, something. Right. Back to F1 sprints, and so the changes. Let's break it down for you. So, of course, actually, I believe Formula One have listened to our podcast. Just saying, because. Yeah. I am pretty sure I suggested something very similar, but a little bit further away. I said 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1 for points, whereas the top 6 that got points. Instead, we have the top 8 scoring points, 8 for first, all the way down to 1 for 8th. So I think that is a decent step forward, in my opinion. And Team WTF1 member Marcus says, will this points format reward overtaking? It's still only 1 point gain per position in the top 8. Yes, I think it will, because the midfield scrap over every single point on to play for. I think maybe for first, second, and third, maybe if it's again Mercedes, Red Bull being those front teams, I'm not sure they'll risk it as much. But if you look back to the sprint races, I don't think many people sort of left it kind of calm and composed and didn't really want to overtake. It was more just the fact that they couldn't overtake because there was no real difference in strategy or tyres or anything like that, that it was very much like the first part of a normal race, but then you don't get the pit stops. So I think for me, you got the new cars. Hopefully they'll be able to overtake easier. I keep saying that in every single podcast I think we've ever done for the 2022 cars. So I think we could be in for a serious banger, but there you go. Watch it be the 3 worst races of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go into it later, but they haven't exactly picked, in my opinion, the best circuits for it. But yeah, I'm hoping that by having the top 8 rewarded by points, obviously points mean prizes in terms of prize money and things like that. And I'm hoping that with this system in place, that maybe we will see some other teams that might not have necessarily been able to pick up many points in 2021 get some additional points this year. But the thing is with the sprint is I'm happy F1 are trying new things and all that kind of stuff. And obviously Brazil last year with Hamilton going from 20th to 5th in the space of, the 100 kilometer race, it left a great impression on us as like the final sprint we saw of the season. You've got to remember in Silverstone and in Monza, there was literally minimal overtaking. I think in Monza, the person that made up the most positions in the whole sprint was Nikita Mazepin, because he made 2 places or something. And that was mainly because Pierre Gasly managed to go off the track and lose his front wing and completely ruin his race. So it sounds great. And, you know, it could just be a case though of more of the front runners collecting more points. But at least hopefully it'll encourage a bit more of overtaking and trying to fight for points if they can see that the top 8 will get them, rather than just the top 3 that are going to run away with it.
Wow, I think the positivity is oozing out of you, Katie. It really is. I'll run away with it. Yeah, bore off. 2023.
It's still only 1 point, like Marcus has said here, like gap, because I don't buy the whole thing of people won't overtake because of the point system. At the end of the day, if you put a racing driver in a car that's faster behind, they're going to overtake regardless of, you know, sorry to trigger people, but Nicholas Latifi and Mick Schumacher in Abu Dhabi is a good example, racing over 16th with a lap to go. And obviously it ended up having huge consequences. But
5 laps to go, actually, but no worries.
5 laps to go, sorry, yeah. But yeah, it shows that, you know, racing drivers will race no matter what. You know, if you've got a chance to overtake, you're going to overtake. The only thing I can think of where that wasn't the case was Max Verstappen maybe backed off a little bit on Bottas in the sprint at Interlagos. And at the end of the day, he's going for a championship. What's the point risking an extra 1 point? But early in the season, I don't think it matters too much. I guess, you know, if you change the point system where maybe it was the old school one where it's 10 and 8, would they go for a move for an extra 2 points? It's minimal anyway. So I think we'll go into this, what we like and don't like about the sprint later, but I don't think it's a case of they don't want to overtake. I think it's just the way the system is where the fast cars qualify well and then are at the front anyway, and there's no variable in pit stops and stuff. Said it so many times. That's why we don't get much overtaking. I don't think it's anything down to the drivers and going, I don't want to risk an extra point, because if they've got a faster car and they can make a move, they're going to make a move. So,
yeah, it's just part and parcel of the cars as well. You know, it's difficult to overtake, as we've seen many times, and that's just what really happens in what did happen in the sprint races. So, fingers crossed, as I say, with the new cars.
Pray these new cars are better.
Yeah, exactly. And then we will most likely see more overtakes, fingers crossed, more than at least what happened in some of the sprint races. What have we got now? Pole position. Yes. So that is something that Ross Brawn, was it Ross Brawn that was spoken to about, you know, why don't you give pole position for the Friday? And he went, that's a good idea, actually.
Another thing we did said in the podcast that should happen. That's happened again.
Look, definitely. We are by fans for fans, aren't we?
Hi, Ross. Really Hi, Ross.
How's it going, Ross? Good to see you. It was great to meet you with WH Smith that time, back when I was 17. Clearly, you know, I've instilled a love. Anyway, so pole position is going to be given for the Friday pole rather than the winner of the sprint race, because that makes perfect sense. So that's good, although we do have a year of anomaly now in the record books. But yeah, it's a good thing. It's a small thing, but it's nice for the stats, definitely. Danny Page says, why is the pole position awarded to the person not starting on pole? I mean,
it makes sense though. I saw loads of people saying this online. Like, in my opinion, this is the better method, because you should be rewarded a pole position for a really good qualifying lap, not a race.
Pole position is qualifying.
And yes, technically it's not pole position, because pole position is starting on the pole position for the race.
Hello, Twitter. F1 Twitter, is that you?
Yeah, but it just makes, to me, it just makes sense. So like they've changed it, and for me, it's for the better. So I'm not going to complain about it, because, you know, I'm thinking back to, I think Katie did an opinion piece on it. You know, Lewis Hamilton's lap at Silverstone, brilliant lap, didn't count as pole position. Max overtook him in the race sprint, and Max gets the pole. Equally, my only concern is what I wish they'd done is while they announced this rule, also announce that if you have a penalty, it still counts as pole, because for me, that's daft anyway. Like, you get pole position even if you've got a 5-place grid drop because your gearbox is broke.
Schumi Monaco.
Exactly. It still should be pole position.
Yeah, I completely agree.
They should have done that as well. That would have been the perfect scenario. But I'm not going to complain about what they've done with this pole position, because to me it makes a lot more sense to do it that way.
Yeah, and I think you see the Friday is qualifying, Saturday is a sprint race, and Sunday is the main race. I think calling it sprint qualifying is only more confusing for everybody watching than if you just call it a sprint race, in my opinion. So, because that's what it is.
They've changed the name of it now. It's just sprint.
It's
not sprint quality. It's not sprint race. It's just sprint. So
let's make it more. Just make it more vague. That's fine. Then
exactly. Just mysterious and that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is one thing that I'm glad they listened to the fans on. I know that it split a lot of opinion because it depends on how you view pole. Is it the person that goes quickest in a qualifying format, which for me is how I would assume pole is taken, the fastest person on track at that one point. But then you can also argue it's the person that starts the race in first position. So I can see why there is split. But yeah, I'm much in favor of this one because it is, to me, annoying looking at the anomaly of last year, like Tommy mentioned with Max Verstappen getting pole for Silverstone. Red Bull were like rinsing on the thing that they were like, Max Verstappen has got like 7 consecutive pole positions now. And it's like, well, actually, that's not technically true because Hamilton, I would argue, had the pole in Silverstone. But Red Bull are obviously going to take advantage of any kind of stat that they can. Fair enough. But yeah, this was one that I'm glad has been changed. But as people pointed out to me, there are bigger things to talk about than just who gets the title of pole position. I don't know if we're going to mention the fact that Abu Dhabi was almost just like, we haven't got an update, next thing, and then talk about all this stuff with sprint. But at least, they've shown that they have listened to.
God, you've deviated there slightly and just gone straight into it. Just a tiny bit, halfway through F1 sprint. No, it's fine.
We can talk about Abu Dhabi and the fact there's no news.
Yeah,
it's a very, very quick summary. Lovely.
Well, I guess for people wondering, isn't it, that we were supposed to get, we were told we'd get some news from the investigation into the Abu Dhabi finale from last year. And we didn't get that, but we got F1 sprint news. But they said in the coming days, didn't they? So in the coming days, we will see a report to the report into the review of the FIA looking into the FIA. I'm really looking forward to reading that. We've investigated ourselves and seen no wrongdoing. It
just reminds me of the meme with the guy from Porn Stars that's like, best I can do is some F1 sprint news. Like we really want to hear about Abu Dhabi. Best I can do is F1 sprint news. But yeah, it was kind of obvious. I mean, I know like Sky were like camped outside Mercedes waiting for this big thing. Like it was going to be this major news story. And it was like, no, nothing really. Okay, cool. But that's no surprise really, is it? I wasn't surprised at all that they're not going to announce much. And I mean, at the end of the day, whatever the findings are, the FA are not going to roast themselves, even if they did it wrong.
Michael Massey went rogue and he did this just for his own. You got paid by Netflix. I don't think it's going to be any juicy news like that, unfortunately.
No. But, I wonder how much we're actually going to see, Yeah.
Oh, not a lot. It will just be a generic statement. Michael Massey will get relocated into safety officer or something. And then that'll be that,
I think
although I'm not sure I'd put him in safety officer after the things he did last year, but it's fine. But he will get, I'm sure, relocated into some different role. But then we don't actually know who would then take, because there's obviously an opportunity that he would just split the role with someone else, and then would have 2 people involved. Which, in some regards, you think, okay, less pressure on him, but also you then go, right, so who is actually in charge? Both of them, neither of them, one of them. Then there's going to be communication. I don't know. We'll see. I think whatever it is.
And then who will we have to complain about?
Exactly.
Yeah. The one thing with Massey. Yeah. The one thing with Massey that I will say, obviously, he did a lot of wrong, in my opinion, during his time as race director. But like you say, who's going to replace him? Because whoever replaces him is going to be in exactly the same place as Massey was, where they're going to have limited amount of experience in that role. And it could be that we just get a Massey 2.0 situation. At least, you know, I've been very critical of Michael Massey on this. Well, I've been very critical of him on this podcast. I know I have, but you've got to admit that he's probably the person out there at the moment that has the most experience in that role. And whether it's a case of keeping him in that role and just supporting him more. But to be honest, I think if they get rid of him, like I said, we're just going to be going around in circles, because you could move Scott Elkins from Formula E and Extreme E that he does, but they're already starting their brand new season. So that's going to massively disrupt their situation. And even then, like, I don't know. I just think it would be a weird move to move him just for somebody with even less experience. But
it's mad, isn't it? That
grass is always greener kind of thing. Yeah. Like, you know, could be even worse having, it's, it all just shows
F1
that
have really messed themselves up, or the FIA, sorry, not F1, but FIA have really dug themselves a deep hole.
I just love how there's like, you know, who's better for the job? Oh wait, there's one job and that person's in it and they have the most experience. So it's like, will he just be there forever now because he's the most experienced? It's going to be an interesting one. But I think, I mean, at least the structure behind the FIA needs tweaking, definitely, from what we saw last year. Right. Watching Netflix without using ExpressVPN is like paying for a gym membership, but only being able to use the treadmill. Netflix has different content available to users depending on where you're located. Netflix has tens of thousands of shows, but you only get access to a fraction of what they offer. ExpressVPN lets you change your online location so you can control where you want Netflix to think you're located. They have almost 100 different server locations, so you can gain access to thousands of new shows. For example, you can head over to the Canadian Netflix and watch Inception. So why choose ExpressVPN over other VPNs? Well, it has blazing fast speeds, it's compatible with all your devices, and it encrypts your data. So be smart, stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting access to a fraction of their content. Get your money's worth at expressvpn.com/WTF1. Don't forget to use the link expressvpn.com/WTF1 to get an extra 3 months free of ExpressVPN. This podcast is also sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Some people think you should wait until things are unbearable to go to therapy, but that isn't true. Therapy is a tool to utilize before things get worse, and it can help you avoid those lows. Many people think therapy is for so-called crazy people, but therapy doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you recognize that all humans have emotions, and we need to learn to control them, not avoid them. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp Online Therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and WTF1 listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/WTF1. That's BETTERHELP.com/WTF1. Back to F1 Sprint. The tracks, as Katie hinted at, maybe not happy with some of them, are Imola, Austria, and Brazil. Team WTF1 member R-Done0 asks, why pick Imola as a sprint race track? It's a fair point.
Quite.
It's a fair point. I don't think we're going to see a particularly exciting race at Imola, in my opinion. Very difficult to overtake unless we get some rain, in which case, spicy.
Hello. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's difficult because then you think, right, are we going to do sprint races at tracks that are difficult to overtake? Because then we might get a shuffle up and then it'd be exciting because, you know, you see the likes of maybe Monza where the McLarens are winning and you don't expect them to win. And then you have this tense race where you don't actually get much overtaking, but you have a jumbled up order because something crazy has happened. Or do you go for tracks where it's really easy to overtake and you just get ridiculous amounts like Brazil, for example? So I guess it's a bit of a toss up, really. And of course, I'm sure there are logistics around it as well that they've decided that Imola, Austria and Brazil are the ones. But I'm not too fussed really where we go for sprint races as long as it wasn't Monaco, really.
It's True. Imola, I love Imola as a circuit, but I think it's really not very suitable for sprint racing. But just looking at the calendar for 2022, obviously they're going to want somewhere early on in the season where everybody has appetite and stuff like that. Bahrain, first race of the season, probably not going to be very sensible. Saudi Arabia, just a big no. I don't think they'll be doing it mainly on street circuits because that's really a bit much. Australia, I don't think was a bad shout. They've had so many track improvements to encourage overtaking that why not give them a chance? You know, we've seen how keen the Australian fans are to have the racing back there. We haven't been there since the pandemic hit. So I would have probably picked Australia over Imola. But yeah, like you say, as long as it's not Monaco, that would really be a bad choice. And on to Tommy, who would argue it's great.
Monaco.
No, it's an interesting point you make actually, Matt, about Imola, because maybe they've thrown that in as a bit of a curveball because I think we can all agree that no matter what cars you've got there, you know, even Formula 3 and like F2 and stuff, like so hard to overtake there. And yes, these cars have promised so much, but they're still very fast, very big, very wide. And Imola is very tight and very, like, you know, it's going to be a difficult one. But maybe, it's more trialing a track that's a bit more punishing. So, you know, I know it was raining, but for example, Hamilton went off, didn't he? And it's punished mistakes. Schumacher went off. Other drivers have made mistakes at Imola and crashed and stuff. So, and then you get, like you say, the jeopardy of, say, that's a big name like a Verstappen or a Leclerc or a Hamilton. They're back in the pack, and it makes it exciting because at the end of the day, let's be honest, the sprint in Brazil was the best one, but it was all because of Lewis Hamilton starting. But which all goes back to reverse grids. But Imola's an interesting one. I think they're gonna just have to rely on, maybe mistakes or it raining.
Yeah, keen for it. And also, we don't know really how the 2022 cars are going to handle it in terms of, you know, are we going to see a fluctuation between qualifying and race performances as well? So we could see teams that are decent in qualifying but not so great in the race, and that could then give them opportunities to create that jeopardy in tracks like Imola. So we'll see.
They can't see either, can they? Because of the new wheel covers.
So racing blind.
So that's the jeopardy. So they put a really difficult track like Imola. They can't see.
Just turn the lights
for chaos.
There you go. Right, next up, at 30. Do you agree with the tracks they've chosen? And if not, which other ones would you have chosen? Of course, Katie has hinted at Australia. I think I am very much on that Australia bandwagon because I think that track looks a lot better from how they've redesigned it. There's a lot more fast sweeping corners. What else would I have gone for? I think, you know, Spa is always a great track that you could have some awesome sprint racing at, I think. Especially, you know, you have that massively long straight after Radion. And you know, and we see some, you know, ridiculous slipstreaming moments on lap one there that, you know, we had two of the Force Indias or Racing Points at the time? I can't remember. Were they Force India or Racing Point?
They were just Racing Point, I think. Literally,
it was that race, wasn't it? So yeah, it was Racing Point. And an amazing picture of both of them fighting for the lead between. Was it Vettel and Hamilton with the other two?
Yeah.
I remember going to Racing Point, now Aston Martin's HQ, and they had that picture there.
Yeah,
it looked so awesome. I mean, it's things like that where, you know, you think, right, could a car that starts fourth or fifth get into the lead from something ridiculous happening in the first few laps? I think Spa's definitely up there.
Saudi.
I think Brazil was a great shout. What did you say?
Saudi chaos, and then that would throw a spanner in the works, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think I agree to have Brazil because Brazil worked. I think Spa would be a great shout, and look, I'm interested to see if Imola manages to deliver on a difficult track.
In an ideal world, and it would never happen, but I'd want to see like a sprint at a different track so they can't set up for it. So you get like a bit of variety. So they do the sprint in Bahrain and then they use that Bahrain short for like a a sprint race on the Bahrain Outer or something, and then they use, I don't know, Silverstone National for the one at Silverstone or whatever. So that'd be cool. I'd like that. But again, this is like logistics and fan placement of grandstands and stuff. It would be absolute chaos logistic wise. But in my little head, just it would be cool.
In your dreams.
In my dreams. But yeah, it all just comes down to the format for me. I don't think it matters where they go.
No. Imagine though, if you were like on the Bahrain Outer and you're like, I've got tickets for the sprint, it's going to be great. And you see that. And then when it comes to Grand Prix Day, you're like,
you're at a corner.
The cars.
Yeah, waiting for them. Oh, bless. But I like that idea though of having almost like the sprint on like a Joker layout kind of thing, of not on the normal track, and they wouldn't be able to get data for it for the race and things like that. But like you say,
actually, it'd be good, to be fair, if we did it at Paul Ricard and they didn't know which layout they were going to go round until they actually went round. And then
that's
they're like,
very Formula-y, that is. With
I was going to say that sounds just like Formula-y.
Because then they do a thing where they don't tell you how many attack modes there's going to be in the race, so you can't plan strategy. Imagine if they just, they don't even tell you what the circuit's going to be.
Like, suddenly go left or suddenly go right. Oh my God, that would be wild.
As it's live.
That'd be bad. Yeah.
Michael Massey's like, next lap, we go left at this chicane instead of right.
Because there's like 150 different layouts, isn't there, at Paul Ricard? So, we could have a very interesting race. Right, next up, Mega versus Primus. Why do you think the FIA wants sprint races to go ahead so badly? It's not the FIA
money
as such. It's Formula One in general, obviously want, and I think we've said it before about sprint races, that they want to give more action over a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday. And we actually experienced the sprint race, didn't we, last year at Silverstone? And there certainly was more action. But I think at the same time there was a lot of people forgetting that qualifying was on Friday, and what was it actually technically called? Anyway, but there was a lot of confusion at the same time. So I don't know how much benefit and loss Formula One got. Only they know. But I think generally speaking, for fans going to the races, there certainly was more going on, and Friday was a lot busier than we've seen. But then I guess on the flip side, maybe they lost a bit more viewers. I don't know, but they want it for money. Yeah, as to sum it up, really.
Yeah, I mean, it does make Grand Prix tickets a bit more valuable if you know that if you get a ticket for a Friday, for example, if you can't make the weekend, if you work weekends, you can go the Friday, and you're not just going to see cars tootling around in practice. You're going to be able to watch a qualifying session. So in that case, it might encourage more ticket sales for that day, and that, I think Tommy's mentioned it before. I think he hit the nail on the head when we were talking about sprint races last year, in that, what was the example? Was it MotoGP you used the example of, Tommy?
Oh, well, like if you're a casual fan, you don't watch the qualifying, yeah. But you tune in for both races, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose it's quite a smart idea from Formula One. But my only thing is that I actually hope either it stays as a long-term thing, because if it doesn't, then it is going to be a case of looking back and just having like this anomaly of just some random sprint races and all the points awarded for that and things like. So I don't know. It's a difficult one because I'm like properly on the fence, as with everything. I'm all for F1 trialing new things, but then I also don't like the fact that the traditional race weekend and how points are awarded and poles are awarded and stuff has just completely been like thrown out the window almost.
Okay, so Katie, for Formula One's benefit, you're going to have to choose a side because they can't fit both sides, unfortunately, for you, Katie. So which one are you going to go on?
For Formula One's benefit, I'll go with sprint races are good.
But what about for your benefit? How about you? Do it for you, not for Formula One. You're like,
I will keep it the same.
Like final thoughts.
Big old balancing
I keep it the same. I wouldn't ever have a sprint race if I was in charge.
Fair enough. I would. I like them. I just wish the format was different.
I would.
Yeah, for all the complaining about it, for me, it's one of those things where, and we see this a lot with stuff where you post something about the sprint. Loads of people say they don't like it. Oh, real F1 fans don't like this and all this kind of stuff. And then you actually do a poll of like, do you like the sprint or not? And it comes out like 60-40 in favor of it and things like that. So for me, I don't like the format in the fact that it's essentially, I'd tweak it more so there's more jeopardy. I think I'm still on, I think the perfect solution is what Lando suggested in Monza, where you have a hyper soft tyre and it's so close to the limit at the end of that race that you actually get a bit of tyre wear and you have to do something, because without the variable of pit stops and things like that, it can be a bit stale. But why not? Why not have, you're traveling all over the world, and why not have more racing at the end of the day? Like, as F1 fans who want more racing, and, this could be a solution where we get more racing, but then it's easier on the teams, because at the end of the day, they're there anyway. If F1 want to have 30, 40 races, just double up them while you've traveled to the other side of the world and you're there and you've got the cars and you're ready to race them. So I'm not against it. Other series have done it. IndyCar is a great example. They do double headers, and I don't think twice about it. And I'm sure, yes, there are a lot of old school Indy fans that you can like look too much into it being traditions and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you never changed anything based on tradition, we'd be still driving around Silverstone Airport with hay bales around. So F1 evolves and changes, and I'd like if they got sprint nailed and like a nice format, I'm all for it. I'd like to see more racing and less practice. Yes, please sign me up.
Shock. It's all about it's all about less practice for you, isn't it? For me personally, I think that 3 is a good amount. I was a little bit skeptical seeing more sprint races coming in because of the side of me that loves just Formula One for what it is: Friday practice, Saturday qualifying, Sunday race. But I think, if they want to spice it up occasionally, I think 3 is a good number. They could maybe ramp it up to 5 if the format works really well and there's lots better racing in terms of the new regulations of cars. I wouldn't want to see a sprint race every single race weekend. No way, because that isn't Formula One, the original Formula One for me. Maybe that's because I'm a boomer. But I would you have that, Tommy? Would you have a sprint race every single race weekend?
Yeah, why not?
You're a disgrace. Right, get off the podcast.
But you say traditional, like what is traditional F1? Because you used to have qualifying on a Friday.
Oh, well, here we go.
It's all changed. It's all changed. It changes. Like everyone moaned when the new qualifying format came in, and then everyone just loves it because that's what they grew up with. Like, just like, why not make it more interesting? I literally don't understand why.
I said I'm happy
traditions.
With sprint races, just not every single race weekend. Let us know in the comment section below where you stand on this. Do you agree with Tommy? Do you agree with myself? Do you agree with Katie? Do you agree with some of us? But little bits, maybe you agree with a little bit of all of us, and you create the perfect solution and fix Formula One. What were you going to say, Tommy?
Ross Brawn does listen to the podcast, apparently.
So
you might read it.
Yeah, it is a tough one because after Silverstone, I was absolutely buzzing, and it was very different that we got to experience Silverstone at the race. So we got both. We got the best of both to like, and 100% from a fan perspective, Silverstone was awesome. Like, you're there on the Friday, you had this really cool event in qualifying, and it felt exciting rather than it just being practice. The atmosphere was really exciting for the sprint, and it was the buzz around the weekend. And then I watched Monza from home, and I was just like, oh, this is like. But for me, again, it's the format. But I did love the hype of like Saturday being something, and obviously having something on the Friday as well. So if they're still going there for 3 days, so like in my opinion, just have more interesting stuff if you're gonna like run the cars. So.
I guess the one thing that, a lot of people were still kind of against was the fact Friday was a thing, and Friday was something actually important that you needed to watch as a Formula One fan, and that a lot of people maybe couldn't because they're at work, which, we're very lucky that we get to watch and be at work at the same time. But I know a lot of people were disappointed that they couldn't watch qualifying live, which, you want to watch Formula One live. You don't want to watch it recorded, because that's, you don't have that feeling of live sport.
I did think about that and change it to 6. But I guess that's the thing. Like they changed it and they had it at 6 p.m, didn't they? Qualifying to try and help that, but also not everyone works 9 to 5. But then
and not everyone's from the UK.
Exactly.
So it is difficult.
Just be
I feel
like
for
in
I
Australia.
feel for Aussies. Yeah, I was going to say.
Where they're just everything is a horrible anti-sociable hour.
If I lived in Australia, I would not be a Formula One fan.
And just massive respect to everyone.
I just never would have got into Formula One because I love my sleep too much. Right, finally, away from sprint races, we need to talk about Spa 2021. Now, of course, we had that farce of a race due to the extreme weather conditions, which meant that Spa went ahead as a race and points were awarded. But we didn't actually get to see any racing action. We saw 2 laps behind the safety car. Now, so essentially they have changed the ruling now that they have to have 2 actual racing laps, not behind the virtual safety car or safety car, before it can be deemed as a race. So I think that's fair. I think that's much better for fans, because if we do get that crazy scenario again, at least they have more of a leg to stand on within the rulings and things like that. So, yeah, at least we're not going to have a safety car thing and then they go, oh, that was a race, guys. Hope you enjoyed. See you next week.
Yeah, I'm sure F1 Twitter will be just as thrilled having 2 real racing laps and calling it a result. It's still it's difficult because Spa, like you say, it's just, it was such a one-off. Like, we've never had that before in Formula One, where it's just so wet that you can literally not even race. There was no way they could have done that race. So was it handled the best? No, but it's always easy to say from here that like what we'd have done. But yeah,
super duper wets. They do. They just need super duper wets.
Having 2 racing laps, like, if we'd had 2 racing laps at Spa, would it have been any less farcical? I don't think, like, a little bit, but people would still be like, why is Max getting 12.5 points for a win when they've done 2 laps? So
it's changed now, though, isn't it? The points, that's not going to be the case anymore. I don't actually have the list of it, but there's like differing percentages now, isn't there? And I don't think it's immediately half points anymore.
Oh, is it not just half? And
no, from what I remember, that they have released something. You guys chat and I'll find it.
Go on, Katie. What's your thoughts on Spa?
Spa, that was kind of where my FIA rants that I had last year hit.
This is what we need while Matt's finding.
I've got it. I've got it. But
I was ready for like a 15-minute
get your rant in.
Okay, you do your rant and then I'll.
Yeah. So I think that the farcical nature of what happened at Spa is equally as disappointing from the FIA as what happened in Abu Dhabi, but I don't know if it's because Abu Dhabi, obviously it was a lot more was on the line. There was a championship to be decided through what the FIA did and how they manipulated the rules with that. But with Spa, it was just handled so poorly, and not only did it let down the millions of people obviously watching it around the world, you obviously had those poor fans that were in the grandstand getting absolutely drenched, having no idea what's going on. And even then, like, there is a series of things that were changed in the rule book just to make things more suitable, like Sergio Perez being allowed to start the race. Should that have happened? Probably not, but it did. As well as, delaying how long the process was going to be until we knew we were going to get racing. And I'm glad that they've looked into this and making sure we'll never get a race that will follow behind the safety car and then claim it to be a race. I'm glad that they've amended that and changed that, and the point system and everything like that. We won't have the awkward little 0.5 points and stuff, which really drove me crazy last year. I know that really that's like the bottom of the things to be annoyed about, but it just didn't look very nice. But yeah, that was another case of Michael Massey and the stewards and stuff like that manipulating the rule book once again. But because maybe it was part of a triple header, or more people had other things to be annoyed about, or maybe everybody was so happy to see George Russell on the podium or things like that, it wasn't really talked about. I feel like everyone was like, that was a shame. You can't help rain, but hey, we're going to Zandvoort next. That's really cool. And that's really exciting. When actually Spa for me was still one of the absolute low points of the season last year. Maybe just a slightly bit less than Abu Dhabi, but yeah, there's my rant.
There you go. There's the Katie rant.
I've been saying that all winter break.
I would probably say that nothing comes close to what happened in Abu Dhabi, in my opinion. So there was a lot of things that were uncontrollable with Spa. It wasn't done properly, definitely. But I think Abu Dhabi was an absolute disgrace. Anyway, back to the points. So if the leader has completed more than 2 laps, but less than 25% of the scheduled race distance, the top 5 finishers will be awarded points. So it goes 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Between 2 laps and 25%. Then we get to the next threshold between 25% and 50%. It's the top 9, and it's 13, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then between 50 and 75% of the race distance, it is the top 10, and it's 19, 14, 12, 9, 8, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. It's very odd. And then, of course, after 75%, it's full points. But remember that all of these changes are subject to approval by the World Motorsport Council. This is just what's been suggested. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's better.
So there you go. So we're not going to get half points for 2 racing laps, which is good. It's just similar to a sprint race, really, now, but just a bit less.
A very, very, very quick sprint race.
Yeah. A 2-lap sprint race, go. But it was a very odd situation where we couldn't get any racing in over a huge amount of time, and it's not something we'd tend to see, very often or at all. So watch it happen 3 times next year now. So there you go. Sorry, guys. Right, Katie, final thoughts.
We have a car launch later, so I'm excited for that. I'm really enjoying watching
later or
launches.
Earlier. It's already happened by the time this podcast goes out. But
yes,
there is a
the Williams
launch.
looks insert generic comment here.
Yeah. I'm really loving car launch season. It's been good.
I mean, anything will look better for you than last year, Tommy. It's the worst liver you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And your final thoughts, Tommy?
Give sprint races a chance.
What was that? Give sprint.
It sounded like an F1 slogan. Give sprint a chance. Yeah, I think when they become, I'm not against them trying it. I do wish they'd change the format, but I'm more excited about them this year to see, with the new cars. Hopefully they're better and more racing with those absolutely stunning cars, and hopefully they're good racing. Is a win for me.
Lovely. And my final thoughts is
goodbye.
Goodbye. I'm looking forward to seeing what sprints offer. I'm glad they're only doing 3. I think the point system is a massive step forward. Hopefully more to play for, and bring it on. There you go. Right. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Katie. Thank you to everybody watching. Hashtag WTF1 Podcast if you want to get involved in the conversation. Leave a like or a good feedback. No, an amazing feedback, wherever you are, wherever you're listening. 5 stars, 10 plums, whatever you're giving for wherever you're listening. I don't know where you'd give plums, but there you go. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening, and we'll see you very soon for another podcast. Bye.
Bye. Bye.